And I would like to welcome on the stage Dr. Artis Pabriks, the chair of the Miltech Association board in Latvia. And I'm very pleased to hand over the moderation of the panel discussion. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the next panel will be quite short, 40 minutes, but I would like to invite our guests of this panel to take our seats. So please, Ingemars, Marco, and Lisa. First of all, a very brief introduction and a little bit about our panel. We do have here representatives of 3 countries, apart of myself. We have Latvian representative, which is Ingemars Puķis, who is the Vice President of Latvian Mobile Telephone, one of our leading companies also in not only in mobile and other technologies, but also in military industry. We have Lisa Thormann, which is a German representative of military industry, and we have Marco Provedera, US representative, who is also a lawyer in New York City and also an expert in geopolitics and international relations as well. And our panel will be organized in a way that I will give a brief speech to each of the panelists so they can present their case, how they see the current situation. And then I would encourage you also to come up with the questions to panelists, or if somebody wants also to ask something to me, it's fine as well. But I'm rather a moderator here. The name of the panel, as you can see, is about building actually resilient defense. This is an emerging need. And we would like to speak here about the role of technologies, the role of infrastructure, and the role of society. Because we all know that at this stage we like it or not, in a kind of wartime situation. Our societies which are here, we are not directly involved in the war, but war is nearby. And we can feel and sense that. And then the question is, how can we be enough resilient and deter this threat? And how can we work together with this triangle between society, between government or governments, and including also the newest technological innovations and also industrial projective, what we do have in each of our countries. So I will start maybe with a general, and then we slowly will go to particular, and then we will maneuver between the general questions and particular questions in this quite brief panel, because we have about 35 minutes or so. So let's start with Marco. Marco, please, maybe say a few words about yourself, which you would like to, because as Churchill told, you know, history should be written by people which are in this history, not by somebody else. And then how do you actually see and perceive this situation where we currently are now here, from the societal perspective, from technological perspective, and also how can we better work together to make the most out of the newest technologies for the benefit of our security and societies. Please.
Thank you very much, Ari, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for your patience for the 3rd day in a row. Okay, well, three basic points for defense resilience in terms of societal terms as well. First of all, embedding of emerging technologies, namely AI, but also quantum, also space technology, and we can go to the full list. Second point, infrastructures in terms of supply chains. We have seen disruption of supply chains after COVID, after Ukraine, and after rise of inflation. And therefore, we need in this picture of great powers competition or strategic competition, even though I know that the new American administration probably means another inflection point very important for Europe, for the allies. But we have to think about a reshoring of major supply chains, which was a characteristic of the so-called globalization, based on cheap shipping, based on available materials, and based on displacing of manufacturing. Now these three elements are in discussion. So we need a resecuritization of technology, number one. And number two, we need to reshore our supply chains. You'll see import and export regulations and tariffs. This is a totally different, it's not a totally different, but it's like we should go into that. The third element is defense budgets, especially in Europe. Europe needs autonomy. Letta report, Draghi report. Macron is keeping saying that, and it's right. We need, in Europe, absolute autonomy. How to get to this autonomy in times of fiscal constraints, in times of necessity, for example, energy transition. And this is a major societal problem, because in Europe, what is needed is political consensus and political reliability. And in liberal democracies, we are dependent on coalitions, on political will, on public forum consensus, which is right now a problem because we need a massive rise in defense spending. Defense doesn't mean just rearmament, but means a number of societal things, including a major pivot for industry.
Marco, thank you very much. And before I go further, you started with this, so I have to follow up with bad questions, because you are experts and you have to try to answer those bad questions with good answers. Look, as you mentioned, we live in liberal democracies. Fine. You are speaking that we need a consensus. But sometimes public view, and one of my colleagues, maybe, if I may say so, he expressed his understanding of a public view in such a way that he told, look, politicians now, they make a nice speech, and they think that this problem is solved by the nice speech. So we are in the third, fourth year now of the overwhelming war in Ukraine. We speak about necessity to raise defense budgets. We speak about necessity to support a military industry. But perception of threat, especially in Europe, and not only in Europe, varies very much between countries, because one perception of threat is in Latvia or in Finland or in Poland, but totally different one is in France, Portugal, or even Germany. So, I mean, how can we get society on the board where politicians get this green light finally to make decisions, not only nice speeches, because time is running out. So what is your medicine for that?
Okay, well, first of all, we have to remark a very important thing. I'm in NATO for groups of experts. We're studying cognitive warfare. In other words, political opinion, public opinion, is not something out of the blue, not something which naturally transpires by miracle. We are facing a major adversarial cognitive warfare, which heavily influences public opinions in our countries, with different perceptions, sure. Perception in Czech Republic or in Estonia or in Latvia is not the same as in France or in Germany or in Spain. Western Europe is still takes for granted a lot of things, is still not totally aware of this strategic emergence. Central Eastern Europe is much more aware. We have to work on that. We have to counter the adversarial cognitive warfare. Unfortunately, in our open societies, we have limited means to do that, because of freedom of speech, because of a number of things that you very well know. In authoritarian regimes, you don't have the problem of public consensus, or at least you have a limited problem on that. So this is a major vulnerability. We're trying to figure out even the legal framework to do that, and it's not easy at all. But just think that this is not something coming out naturally. This is induced, and adversaries are very good at that, extremely good at that. You see the narratives are common. The narratives in Poland, in Spain, in Italy, in France are common. We don't have to invest. We don't need to invest in defense. What are you talking about? We need hospitals. We need roads, and this money is wasted for some dreams and some fake danger. This is one of the narratives. There are a lot of narratives. They're very similar, and they have one matrix.
Thank you, Marco. Lisa, you heard what Marco told, that we need societies on board, and military technologies, development, everything which is connected with production of any kind of goods for defense, security, and providing resilience and deters enemies depends very much on technologies and companies like yours. So maybe if I can a little bit guide you for this answer, could you also a little bit introduce what your company is doing and how actually your company is tackling this issue of public opinion and governmental attitude, because your business very much depends on also government orders, like every military industry, because military industry, this is not, sorry to say, bananas or apples, which you simply collect. You go to the market and to sell to whom you want. You need a partner within the government. So please, maybe the German perspective and your company's perspective on this issue.
Yes, so we also realized that we are facing these challenges in regard to maritime security in our products and services we like to bring into the market, because there's still a lack of regulation and policies available in many countries we are focusing on. So we as a company, ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems, we have 4 operating units. One is responsible for building non-nuclear submarines, and we have another one for surface vessels. We also have Atlas Electronics, building sonar systems, combat management systems, or also uncrewed vehicles. So it's a quite large variety of products we can offer, our products, software, capabilities, and data handling. As whole. So within my operating unit, we are focusing, among other things, on maritime security. And it's interesting because it's in between the military world and the non-military world. So we are always in between, and it's not decided yet where to put the different pieces together. And that's a challenge for us, but also a big fortune, because we can also focus on other companies that are not only focusing on defense. So that's actually really nice. Because we can also talk to other companies and get commercial off-the-shelf products. And that's also what we're looking forward to in the future. So we developed an overall concept for maritime security in terms of wind parks, cables, harbors, and we cannot provide all the solutions within this ecosystem we developed. And therefore, it's really interesting for us to cooperate also with other partners. But as we heard in the panel before, it's always challenging when you partner with other institutions. So it needs to be really precise for us and on a specific like pilot project or blueprint. So this is what we are currently focusing on.
Germany, just like Latvia, is historically a country which was in a Hanseatic League. So Baltic Sea, or as you say in German, Ostsee, it's something which unites us. We also know that from maritime perspective, which you mentioned, Baltic Sea is one of the most crowded seas globally, because if I'm correct, Baltic Sea hosts every day about 4,500 different types of ships and boats. We also could see a lot of incidents growing and rising in the last year as far as underwater infrastructure, etc., cables, energy cables, and solutions are here, varies from one to another perspective. So what is your take, what you could offer to make maritime safety on a higher level, and how do you see cooperation for your company with other Baltic Sea countries here? Because obviously we cannot ensure the security of maritime connections just nationally. This is simply impossible. So your company's future depends not only from cooperation with your national government, but also within the region. So anything you could explain or add? How does it look from your perspective here?
Well, we as a company have a lot of hardware products available in terms of surveillance and security in general. And we also have the knowledge in handling multinational large-scale projects over decades. So I think this is an advantage we bring to the table. But when you look at the entire ecosystem, it goes from space to air to the sea, underwater to the seabed, and we cannot provide all the solutions within this ecosystem. So we don't have so many products, none at all in the space, and only, I think it's one in the air. So we cannot offer this. And also, in regard to all the specific software solutions and software integration on all the sensors, well, underwater we know a lot of, or we have a lot of capabilities, but in regard to different aspects, we still need partners. So this is what we're looking for, and it was really interesting. Yesterday I got the opportunity to see what LMT does, and it was really inspiring.
Thank you. So LMT as one of the possible partners, Lisa. That's what I understood. But now time is running, and we are turning really to Latvian mobile telephone, Vice President Ingmars Puķis. Once more, LMT is one of the flagships of our security and technologies and communication technologies in the country. And you are probably also the company, not probably, but surely, of critical infrastructure. So if something happens, I would say one of those missiles will be targeted exactly at this building from one of our neighboring countries. That's a reality, and I don't think we should hide that. But what is your take? How do we make these things not to happen? What should we do as far as to make our societies more resilient, our societies to understand, not only in Latvia, but also in Europe and globally, that we have to invest in security, in defense, we have to collaborate with our partners in other countries. And how do you see this, and what you are ready to do, or not to do?
Hello. I'll probably start about these missiles going straight to our data centers. I would probably oppose that suggestion, since me as a communicator, I've been in the communication business for 25 years now, and I say communications tend not to work as you hope, and this goes, it's international thing. It goes for Latvians, Germans, or Russians as well. So what we can actually observe about around many theaters over the last 10 years, that all the parties are actually trying to keep the telecommunication infrastructure intact, because their field radios or anything else normally don't work. Only when the front line gets stalled, then of course the communication gets teared down. But while the front line is still moving, when the armies are on the move, everybody keeps the communication safe. That's going as far as going.
So hopefully Russians hear that what you say.
That's not the first order of things for Russians to actually bomb my office. That's a good news. Yeah, that's one thing. But all in all, what's been our experience? We are, of course, historically coming from fully a civilian company, selling iPhones, building towers, and doing such funny stuff. And things changed when 5G promise or marketing of 5G showed around, because everybody like 8 years ago was screaming, 5G this, 5G that, sun will rise on the west and everything, but no one was able to showcase a practical thing, what would actually 5G do beyond stupid old-time browsing or broadband. So we had this joke that no one needs 5G actually. So we actually set on the path, we actually built a whole new layer within the company who is dealing with actually finding something useful you can do with 5G, and this promise of 5G was purely of industrial nature. So meaning, 5G is not for you as humans, 5G is more meant for robots, sensors, and everything else. So luckily for Latvia, probably, we did it quite on time, so like 8 years ago, and by now, we actually have quite a huge, many teams actually, not just one team, quite significant teams dealing with industrial connectivity, and as a part of it, one of the major lines of business is defense, because NATO has been turning its eye and shifting the concept from historical standpoint where NATO is not using civilian technologies at all, when they noticed that in many theaters, adversaries are using way more cheaper gear to take out multi-million devices. So NATO is trying to find practical appliances for coming from civilian tech. So what we have been seeing now that this is possible, and we are trying to sell it as a role model, because our belief is that, everybody can observe, honestly, that Russia is going to full war footing mode, and it doesn't matter, well, it does matter, but independently how the situation in Ukraine ends, or independently does Vladimir Putin, if he's still alive, I don't know, if he dies or not, it doesn't matter, because society as a whole in Russia has gone to war footing. The appreciation for war is going up, not down. So we can clearly forecast that for at least next 10 years, Russia will be an increasing troublemaker. There is no question. Therefore, for us as the frontline states, we cannot hope that government alone can tackle the issue of security. Therefore, in Latvia, for many years now, there's this idea of comprehensive defense, meaning that everybody in society is responsible, meaning all the decent human beings or companies have to look for the way how they can partake in the military. Therefore, we are right now trying to discuss how companies, particularly big companies, not just startups, but particularly big companies who have the industrial base, who are not associating themselves with the defense big business, how to pull them in. I have my favorite example of a great factories dealing with products from wood. They're having lots of metal, CNC, and chemical competences. Our estimates show they would be able to start producing landmines within 6 to 8 months. They have all the competence and technical capacity, but the only thing they probably lack, they have to embed somebody from the military within their corporate structure. Something we've been very successful with. On the previous panel, Mr. Kaspars Polaks was present with his previous experience within the Navy. And this, if you merge the military competence with a classical corporate structure, and you have this sense of urgency and some political sense, and Latvia has no this problem, or Baltics per se, we have no cognitive discussion, sense of urgency is present. Nobody is discussing a need for defense. We are past that point, so we are actually able to build. The only thing we are lacking still is, of course, we are too much of a bureaucrats, because the society has been voting for very transparent, very prudent government purchasing processes. They are not compatible with war footing, and this is a very politically unclear. How do you, from purchasing perspective, how do you become a war footing country? That is something I don't know yet.
Thank you, Ingemars. Well, actually, Mr. Vice President of LMT was a bit shy, because I don't think he clearly mentioned that Latvian Mobile Telephone was, I would say, the first company in Europe which introduced 5G test grounds in NATO military base, which was in Latvia already a number of years ago. But before we move forward, I wanted to ask you just a question. How would you describe the development of technologies in your sphere within last 5 years? How do you see, how much did you learn from this war in Ukraine? And how much actually technological mindset change and technologies themselves change within the, let's say, last 4 or 5 years because of this wartime situation?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious, of course, that whatever happens in Ukraine right now. So everybody is saying this. I think this is a common knowledge now. If you are not in Ukraine, you are not participating in the military industry at all. So if you're not learning, and me as a National Guard, I've been National Guard myself for 10 years. I'm participating in many drills, and there are some quite oftenly coming our dear friends from many NATO countries, and we can still observe most of the companies participating NATO force, they are totally unprepared for drones. It's simple as that. They are just stand out in the field and just die. I mean, this is such an obvious shift. So it's very blunt. It's very simple. I mean, we have to switch, and all these technologies we take in. We see that we are quite honored because actually radio electronics, communication, jamming, counter jamming, that is everything runs around this task. How do you counter Russian capabilities on that?
Thank you. Well, I would like to turn now to our distinguished auditorium. And do you have any questions or comments to panelists which you would like to ask? And the first very, very brave question is coming from the left corner. Please state yourself and ask the question. No, we don't hear yet. Either use a surgeon voice, or maybe technology guys can fix it. It works. It works now.
Okay.
It does work.
My name is Santa Vitola. I do represent the Vidzeme planning region in Latvia, which is by fact the border region here. And we have one of 11 municipalities directly crossing the Russian border, but we have 10 more. The whole region that serves as a buffer zone for the whole European Union. It's an external border. And if I see emerging needs, building resilient defense, what I hear and what is a need is strong communities. It's a trust for political decisions. And you also within the panel mentioned that we need to prove society why we have to invest in deep tech, for example. So at this point, we also see that we have to invest in building strong communities so they can trust what they say and we can convince them. So my question for you as tech experts would be then how we can use deep tech and AI to actually solve this issue. How can we build the trust by using these tools in order for them afterwards trust what we say them to do? So, if you can answer in any way. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, who would like to answer this question? And maybe while you think, I could add an additional part to this question, because a person which asked the question was telling that she is coming from one of the EU and NATO border regions, which means the border with a country which is waging a war is just there behind the corner. Now, what role do you see of international cooperation? And we did not touch a question also about the role of European Union. How would you encourage these people to stay and live in the region, which is maybe 5 or 10 or 15 kilometers from possible aggressor nation? Would you, as representatives of company, maybe this is more to Liz, would you be ready to invest in that region, since we are both representing countries of NATO and EU, and every citizen, at least on the paper, in every NATO country is granted equal security. And 5th article is guaranteeing that. So what would be your encouragement for local communities over there, for countries bordering, and what we could do as representatives of new technologies also to assist to make our societies in every region more resilient. So please speculate on that now. Who is the first one?
This is a pretty tough question. I mean, I have to probably...
We are not here for easy questions.
We have to give some prize, probably, or something. The only very modest comment I can give on that is that, of course, the border region, from my perspective as a communication company, has always been a very complicated matter for many reasons, because of the density of the population is quite low. So classically, the commercial case for rolling out telecommunication infrastructure is low, plus being a border region has tons of limitations in the wireless use of frequencies, because we have to balance these frequencies with neighboring countries like Russia, for instance. And this makes this case even more harder. Having said that, we've seen lots of new rollouts in the bordering regions since the last 5 years. We will actually, and there much more capacity has been rolled out and still will. There is an ongoing discussion right now also with the government about the possibility to actually join in some more cooperation between the operators, cooperation within the European Union, because the simplest of the needs is, of course, is being connected. You cannot be a part of society if you have no connectivity, for that matter. In general, Latvia, as of now, is probably one of the leading countries in OECD. We recently overpassed Finnish people, crazy Finnish people, by volume of consumption of mobile data and mobile communication. We are #1, and this, in many cases, goes because of the rollout of infrastructure all across the country. But of course, we are not very happy with the coverage and capacity, particularly in the border regions. And this is something we will have to look into, because this is not solvable by any single operator, I do believe. Yeah.
Thank you. Marco.
Yeah, this is an excellent question. First of all, you have to show unity, which NATO and European Union have a problem in showing. Second of all, you need a legal framework to do that. Can you really intervene on your domestic population? As, for example, let's make a clear example. If I am an intelligence agency of a Western country, can I target the domestic audience with a counter-narrative? State of the art, the answer is no. So applying emerging technologies, do the adversaries, do the Russians do that? Sure. And there's also a difference, which has been spelled out in a recent paper, in between foreign influence and foreign interference. Are our elections interfered with? Sure. We got the legal means to oppose that partially. So we have a number of open questions. Another thing, in the more physical world, if you like, fragmented procurement system for the European defense. We have to solve this problem. I heard a lot of things this past 3 days, first at the European Space Agency, then at these panels, then these store-ups. Okay, we have a totally fragmented system of procurement. It cannot go on like that. Underdeveloped capital markets in Europe. We rely on these business angels, venture capital. Yeah, this is a more sophisticated stage of the financing process. It's a second stage, it's not the primary stage. Or rely on the governments, which is fine. Governments must do their part. But, and you know, building up resilient and substantial financial markets is not something that you do in 1 week or in 1 month. So, first of all, let's start with trying to find a common way of procure defense. And then going to the cognitive aspect. Cognitive aspect is not just this information, you know. The brain today is a battlefield. Actually, they use all the neurosciences. Everything is much more sophisticated than you think. And they have good results. At least in some audiences, in some countries which are prone for historical, cultural reasons. Now the analysis would take too long, but this is the reality. So we should, for example, in terms of border regions, we should show to this brethren, to these people in the border regions, that we are unified. Our response is one. And we have to do that through not just talking, but through concrete steps. Unification of financial markets, unification of defense procurement, more Europe, but in a new framework of collaboration. This can help, and also must be communicated in an efficient, effective way. And we have a problem in communication. NATO has a problem in communication. The EU has a problem in communication. And so we make ourselves prone to all the possible narratives. This happened with Brexit. This happened in 2011 with the financial crisis. This happened with COVID. This happens and you name it. All things are good to formulate a narrative which is contrary to European interests and to the allied interests.
Thank you. Very encouraging, I must say.
The famous lawyer's list of catastrophes. You know.
Yes, thank you. Liz, anything you would like to say, maybe through European project perspective? Because can we hope, for instance, that European Union will become really a player, for instance, uniting governments, uniting modern technologies, and providing a really defense capabilities at our eastern border, from Finland till Romania, and including Baltics? Do you see anything how you could encourage cooperation between companies and to get also political support from Brussels?
Well, we are trying the efforts in terms of maritime security, but we'll see how it goes. I guess it's still open.
Any partners in Latvia?
Well,
will be.
Well, okay, I wish you all the best for this partnership. And ladies and gentlemen, any other question to distinguished panelists? Complaints? Comments? On your side? Because we still have 2 minutes. So, okay, if nobody wants to ask, maybe a final few sentences from each of the panelists regarding how do we really get a resilient societies, not only in separate countries, but in all European continent, and if you have some kind of medicine or support for that, how to do it faster, please state it now and here. So I will start with Ingemars, maybe.
So probably in short sentences, I strongly believe that we have to break the idea that corporations have no part in the defense, in being patriotic or saving your country from invasion. So there's been long-standing, decades-long, like complete separation, ethical separation of corporate world from military, from defense, and everything else. I think there is no way for Europe as a strong force in the future is that corporations, particularly big corporations, have to step in and start to think military.
Thank you. Liz?
Yes, so I think it will be about clearly defined interfaces to add.
Thank you. Marco, final words from a lawyer.
Need for strategic autonomy must be effectively conveyed to the general public.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, with this we conclude our short panel. I guess if there will be more time, there will be also more questions and deeper discussion. But at this moment, a short break before the next event is taking place on this stage. Thank you very much.
Thanks.